Okay, now where did I put my, that's not it. Oh, goodness. So sorry. Hello, everyone. And I'm just pulling up the agenda here. Aha, here it is. Okay, so welcome. And we will open the meeting with approval of the agenda. And are there any introductions of late items?
Sue Ellen, I've got my hand up.
All right. Hello, everyone. And I'm just pulling up the agenda here.
We've got a weird time warp happening. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All is resolved.
Okay. I'm on the agenda. We have some photos and some things from a walkabout, but I don't want to add them. We were talking about them just before the meeting because it was kind of inconsequential and we've got a big agenda, so we can, the chair can discuss it later and decide whether, I just don't want to keep any secrets. It was just about the beach volleyball thing. There was only a couple of us who went, and I took some photos with my iPhone, and that's basically what the report is. And so let's not put that on the agenda.
I have it in the folder for the agenda for the next meeting, if that works.
So and I can talk about it in my update if you want to, if time allows, if there's
Sure.
time.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Can I have someone move the recommendation that the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee approve the agenda for the February 28, 2023 meeting? Nicola, and seconded Rob, and we're good to go. Thank you. And we're on to adoption of minutes. Did everyone get a chance to peruse them? Did anyone find any errors or omissions? The only error I could find was in the spelling of my name, only in one place. The other places it was great.
I think it's Jamie Sheffer that's getting in my head now.
Oh, well, this was yeah, so it's on the last page of the minutes under
find it.
Ocean Rocks Trail. It's just missing a C, I think.
Okay,
Not that it
sorry.
matters. It's like, oh,
Matters.
I'm gonna
I'm
bring
sorry.
it up. The one this is the only.
Yes,
thing.
of course. I'm sorry. You matter.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi.
Okay, and Jeremy, just about to move to adopt the minutes. Anything you saw that was awry?
No.
Okay. Can I have someone move that the minutes of the PTGAC meeting held January 17th be adopted? Lulu, seconded. Jeremy, thank you. All right, and I believe we don't have any public comments today. Is that right, Steph? Okay, so we'll move on to number 4, which is an informal discussion regarding the potential Cape Roger Curtis land acquisition. And Councillor Sue Ellen Fast is going to speak to this. It should be noted that we don't have the official referral. Is that right? We don't have the official referral. But we're starting discussion. Okay, go ahead, Sue Ellen.
Thanks, everybody. Yes, so this is early days. And in the part of what I hope will be a fulsome community discussion around the proposal brought to the municipality by Metro Vancouver Parks. They're looking for, at this point, they're looking for a rezoning, and that's what will come to this committee, and they will present it, or park staff, or Carla will present it, or somebody from BIM staff will probably be there too, especially Steph. And but that's to come.
So Daniel will present with support from Metro.
Yeah, Daniel. Okay, great. So that's to come. What we're hoping tonight and what we've got on the agenda relates more to the discussion and the referral that we made yesterday. So yesterday we had Bowen Council had a site visit to Cape Roger Curtis in the snow with Metro Vancouver staff and a couple of elected officials in the morning from the Metro Vancouver board, the board chair, George Harvey, and the Vice Chair John McEwen, who's also the chair of the Parks Committee for Metro Vancouver, both came out with a bunch of Metro Vancouver staff, including the general manager of Parks and Environment and the Metro Vancouver CAO, like the a whole range of staff. Anyway, so we had a good site visit out there in the snow. Quick overview. I learned a few things that I didn't know before, like that there are conservation covenants on parts of the proposed park property. And I think we'll be getting more information about that, or we can ask later. And then at that meeting, we, Bowen Island Municipality, then went from the site visit to a committee of the whole. So this was on yesterday afternoon. Some of you might have tuned in, or you can watch the recording. Started at 12:30. Metro Vancouver gave about a half hour, 45-minute slide talk and introduced the rezoning proposal, which is basically to change it from rural residential, like houses, big, these 10-acre estate kind of houses, to include the possibility of a different use, which is overnight use, which isn't in there right now. And so we'll hear more about that next week. But this was introductory. We heard from Metro Vancouver staff, and then we looked at what we'd be thinking about doing as council after we heard from the public. So then we had, I don't know, around 7 to 10 speakers, very constructive, very civil. It was a pleasure to be part of that meeting. And this was also, we had received many, many letters from people as well. And then council had a quick discussion, and we asked questions of the planners where we wanted clarification. And I see your hand up, Carla.
Oh, sorry, Sue Ellen, I just didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure that, so this isn't the official referral from yesterday. We're doing the initial referral that with Andrew's question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just.
No problem. I'm
Sure.
just setting the stage. I'm sure everybody's been on social media. They know all about this stuff, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew. So at the end of all of yesterday's questions and answers, a tiny bit of discussion from Bowen Council. Then we did the official referral. We received the rezoning application. We did the official referral out of that rezoning application to this group, and ECAC and the Emergency Programs Executive Committee and all kinds of other committees, including Islands Trust, BC Ferries, and a few other groups like that. And then we went into a regular council meeting where we, as the very last item in that was at around 8:30, we ratified that decision. So you will get that referral through staff in time. But I just wanted to catch you up with the events of yesterday. So that was after this agenda was published. This agenda is part of the informal kind of, let's start thinking about it now. What questions do we want to ask? So I'm actually going to, I sent out a bunch of emails with some background information, context from years gone by, and some of it kind of recent, like that biodiversity connectivity report, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I've sent out a bunch of emails. You don't have to look at them. They're just there if you want to see them, and to let folks who might be a little, have spent fewer years in community work on the island know about some of the stuff that was going on in the past. So to me, this is a long-term project. And I suggest that we sort of start with the suggested starter questions. So Steph or Claudia, if you could open that one, which is 4.1B. I want to go back.
Yeah.
Okay. While she's doing that, one of the issues is, of course, that we don't have a lot of information because Metro Vancouver is in the initial stages and they're asking people, what do you think? What kind of information do you want? So these are the questions from our mayor his suggestions for us to think about during this part of the meeting. And I won't drag this on too long, except just to make sure you've seen it. What does this committee need in relation to considering the specific rezoning about camping and how that might work? Maybe what do you anticipate other information the committee would need as the park planning goes further? I don't know. What aspects are most important to this committee and are in the terms of reference kind of area? I won't read it all, but you can see, how do you want to be engaged? Well, actually, the way the mayor puts it, how would you be excited to be engaged or to engage the community with? And so these are the questions that the mayor had. And if you could go to the next one up there, Steph. A.
Pardon? A is just a referral, if that's just,
Yeah, I talked about that. You're right. Okay, good.
yeah, we want to look at these questions or whatever. The idea was that the committee can be free to discuss whatever they want. And also these are ideas.
Right. And if you could go up to BIM page on CRC and open that.
Okay. Okay.
You've probably seen this. This is Bowen Island Municipality's page about this project. And this is just, I'm going to do a little comparison if and when it comes up. This is where we've separated out the roles of Bowen Island Municipality and Metro Vancouver. And they're the proponent, they're the applicant, if you want. And if you scroll up, Steph, so we can see the timeline. There you go. So you see the two columns, Bowen Island Municipality, and we're just at February 27th, there was yesterday. And then Metro Vancouver has their whole process happening as well. And we just wanted to make it clear that we're not, that we're doing some separate things. So the work, this committee, I'm hoping that you will help Bowen Council do the work in the orange. And there's a whole bunch of detail there, but just to let you know, there's two separate timelines. In fact, there may be more. There's others to be consulted, including Squamish First Nation or Squamish Nation and probably others like the Islands Trust and things like that. So this is the proposal that's, thank you, Steph. This is the proposal that's in front of us. The dark green is their proposal. And then there's a whole Metro Vancouver page about Cape Roger Curtis, and I don't want to open that now. I just want to let you know the kind of material that's out there. And you can always look at the agenda from yesterday and the live stream from yesterday's Committee of the Whole meeting. There's some all kinds of information now available there. So I'd just like to open that was my introductory remarks. If anybody's got any questions, or if you want to, maybe I'll throw it over to Claudia. If you'd like to lead the discussion, or we can start with those questions. What are people's reactions in terms of what kind of information do you want? What would make you excited to be involved in this discussion and project and potential for a park at Cape Roger Curtis?
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen, for that synopsis. I'm going to throw it open to the floor. Does anyone want to DG? Go ahead.
Great, thanks. I just have a question about the timeline. I mean, it feels to me, it feels very rushed. This is a huge decision. And I was wondering who is
Suggesting the,
yeah, like who, you know, like whose timeline is this? Is this the municipal timeline? Is this Metro's timeline? Like who's running that that timeline?
Well, if I'll try and answer, and Carla, jump in if you want to. This is the part of the proposal that is just about the change of use to overnight and camping. And right now it's a draft kind of thing. We don't know how long either one of those will actually take. That's kind of how long it could take. And we do know that there's or what we've been told is that there's a conditional offer on by Metro Vancouver Parks on the properties sale. And so as far as I know, it hasn't completed yet. And I think that has some bearing on the time. But I don't know how important that is to our discussion here today and the questions that are in front of us. There's a lot of questions about that, and I don't have all the answers. Carla, do you have anything you want to add? Just, I don't know if it is that. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think it's like, I think it's fairly standard with a rezoning. I mean, we just worked on the Arbutus Bay rezoning, and that was first introduced to council in like November or something, and then they're doing first reading next, or it's been referred back to us. So it's kind of a standard timeline for rezoning. I think that the timeline feels kind of fast for everybody. I get that. I think that the fast timeline is more for the rezoning, and then they are intending to spend a lot more time on the planning afterwards. But they're just asking for the rezoning now, and that's the one piece that's a little bit more.
It's the hardest piece what they're asking. Like, you know, that is a huge change. So I don't really buy the, you know, we're just doing a standard rezoning, and it doesn't, you know, it can meet, it can,
Okay.
you know, it's the
I hear-
usual.
Can I
business as
ask
usual.
if I was going to put that into words, DG, would it mean what kind of information would we need, and how much time would we need as a committee?
Yeah,
assess-
like what information, like, okay, so I saw Claudia had something, and then I'll say something.
Okay. It's the same point. So thank you. I guess, you know, as DG said, it is the critical piece. Of course, everyone would like it to be a park. It's what's going to be done at the park, with the park, what the facilities are, and the whole camping aspect. And so the concern is, like, if this is rushed at the beginning, then so I guess we need to know what control do we have if this, if the OCP is changed to allow overnight camping, to limit the number of campsites at the new park. Is it, you know, is it Metro Parks has a certain number that they're not going to purchase the property as a park if they can't supply X number of campsites? So I guess one of the questions would be, you know, what is their sort of minimum for overnight camping that they would walk away from the project? And are we in any way bound once the OCP is changed to allow overnight use? What control does the municipality have at that point of how much use is to occur there? DG and then Jeremy.
Yeah, and thank you, Claudia. Those are my questions as well. And before, for me, in terms of information, to do a change in the zoning at Roger Curtis, I would need to have some projections, some planning studies completed in terms of the impact of visitors, and that correlated to the number of visitors, because that's the big issue is, you know, in my mind, loving the park to death. If we've seen, I go back to Joffrey Lakes and what a gong show it was there, because it was very popular. And I don't know if any of you all tried to drive by there. There was cars parked everywhere. And and of course, the impact on the environment was significant. So I would like to see some concrete studies done about the impacts of visitation numbers on the park, period, and then looking at the camping issue. And I know for me, I don't think camping is appropriate at that park because of a multiple of reasons. But a big part of that is looking at the way people have to get there, and the impact on our neighborhoods and our infrastructure and our emergency services and stuff, which are sort of outside the purview of this committee, but it's all part of managing that park. So I would really want to see the impact analysis done prior to any rezoning. And so that would have to be a fairly broad impact analysis study. And to my knowledge, that has not been done yet, unless I'm wrong. Has that been done? Are there reports?
No, I haven't seen them. And I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Have you got that, Steph? Yep.
Okay,
So-
Jeremy, and then I'll speak once more.
Yeah, I think you've made some really critical points. Nobody wants to see this thing funneled into time constraints when it's such a major consideration, because and I think you have to go cautiously on this, because I think there just are a lot of unknowns, notwithstanding the fact that we're probably missing a fair bit of information in terms of studies. But I mean, just offhand, I would say that the size of the park doesn't warrant the number of campsites that they're talking about. It's just disproportionate. It's not Banff, and you have to balance.
So you'd like to see a rationale for the number of campsites proposed?
Yes, absolutely. And back to what Claudia was saying about what are their thresholds. This was an issue in the Parks Canada proposal. They simply didn't tell us what their thresholds were. And so there were big gaps in our understanding about where the thing might go. That's important. I think that the sine qua non ultimately is everybody does want a park. And how far are we willing to go to, or are they willing to go to sort of balance the community's requests and whatever their thresholds are, and undoubtedly they do have them in terms of what would make the park viable from their perspective.
Sue Ellen, do you have something to that point?
Yeah, I just want to chime in. A couple of people have said everybody wants a park. Maybe everybody on this committee wants a park, but we've received a lot of letters and not all of them support a park. So just something
Even
to
a park without camping, Sue Ellen?
They just don't want anything that brings any more people to the island. Some of the letters we've received. And so just to bear in mind, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's partly why I'm trying to get the questions very specific from the committee. Go ahead, Steph.
Lori, I find this referral is not what we're normally used to. But they don't, according to the mayor, they would like to hear, they don't need to be really specific at this point, at this discussion. We have a referral on the book for next meeting where we need really specific. But these, yeah, sorry. That's how I've been told to approach this.
And I'm just, I was on the speakers list, and then Rob is next. So I guess what a number of us are saying is that this is backwards. How can we change the OCP before we have these studies done? Like, we don't know what the impact of changing the OCP is without these studies. And I don't know what the regulations are with, someone comes with submits to have a bylaw change, but it really seems backwards at this point to not know what the impacts are and then change our OCP before we have any of that information. So, and yes, the mayor is asking, like, what do you need to know? Well, I think, we need to have those studies. What are the effects? And for the purview, I know there's so many committees that will be looking at this, and one of them is transportation, so that's not our purview. But as far as this committee goes, is the number of people that would be expected at the new park with camping enabled, and we have to look at this, at what the number that Metro wants for campsites. And I did see somewhere that they're estimating 3.5 people per campsite. And what is the effect of that number of people on the vegetation and the ecosystems at the park? And this is a little sidebar, but I think a lot of the people that come to the park will be expecting that, oh, well, it's right on the ocean, we'll be able to swim. And that is, not really possible there. And so then we have all these people who are kind of wanting to swim, especially in the summer, and then they're going to all the surrounding, they're driving or what have you to surrounding beaches. So then there's an effect on, which would come under our purview, is the other beaches like Tunstall and Pebble Beach in Cape Roger Curtis and Bowen Bay.
That's kind of like an impact assessment study on other Bowen beaches.
Yes,
Right.
which are under our purview. So we have to also be thinking about that. And it's not just the exact property.
Thanks.
Rob,
And I'm just going to jump in to say, talk about impacts. What comes to my mind is Lighthouse Park. And the second thing I wanted to say is swimming and emergencies. And I think we also added the referral to the Emergency Program Executive Committee, which I'm on too. So, okay. I'm going to shut up now.
Rob, and then Carla, please.
Thank you. Yeah, in agreement with pretty much what everyone said. And one of the challenges with impacts is how they're going to regulate, or if they're going to regulate, not only camping, but day use visitors. And nobody's really talked about day use. How much parking? Are they going to have a permit system like some of the provincial parks? Because that was casually tossed out, from what I understand, by Metro Parks yesterday. We've got all these other things that we just don't have enough information on to gauge what the impact might be without some of that information.
And Carla?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, just because Claudia, you were saying about that we didn't know and we don't have those studies done, just about the timing and everything. So we get the referral as the committee gets the referral once after the rezoning is introduced. We give our comments. It goes back to council and with the draft bylaw, and then that bylaw actually gets referred to the committees again. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused, but anyway, there is a point at which council can say, we need these studies done. So it's the same thing that we did with the Arbutus Bay rezoning, where DG, I think, was saying, you said it, I think, even at the site visit, we should have an environmental assessment done. So they went back and did that environmental assessment, and then the rezoning comes back to us. So there definitely is an opportunity to ask for those things.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Anyone else?
I see DG's hand is up on, it's yellow hand on your yellow background.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then there's
Okay.
other people we haven't heard from yet before we run out of time.
Okay, DG?
Yeah, I just speaking to the in my view, plus the overnight camping assessment and the impact of, total number of visitors on that space. It seems to me that we need to have a holistic look at the impact of the visitor use. I mean, that's sort of the nub of this whole thing. I mean, I would love to see a park out there. It's the visitors and use of this space, because we all know what right now in Crippen Park, what it's like in the summer. We get a lot of people, and it's great that people come and they walk off the ferry, mostly, but it really has a pretty big impact. And to move ahead without having that planning done ahead of time just seems to me an absolute no starter. And the other thing in terms I wanted to raise was Metro Vancouver Parks has Crippen Regional Park on Bowen as well, in terms of under their purview to manage. And I would like to see them look at those two spaces sort of more holistically, in the fact that they are both on a very small island. So to me, I would think having camping in Crippen Park, where people could walk on and, close to amenity, close to emergency services, would make so much more sense. And historical use, that is what it was used for, historically. So, but what I've heard sort of anecdotally is like, no, we want to consider them completely separately. And I think that is a really poor move from an island perspective. Like, we are an island ecosystem. We need our planning to accommodate that whole ecosystem. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Nicola, yes, please.
Sue Ellen, I just want to say thank you for forwarding all that information. I really appreciated that. It was really helpful. And I agree with what everybody else has already said about the concerns. I think we all want a park. It's what that's going to look like. And camping wise, I do agree. I heard that idea about Crippen Park and camping there, which seems to make sense to me as well. And I did look in a bit to, it seemed to me like the Ruckles camping on Salt Spring was kind of the closest comparison, because it's another island and it's, a short ferry ride, and what that looked like. I was just kind of curious to compare, and maybe some of you have already done that as well. They have 78 campsites, which I was really surprised, because I've been there and I was kind of shocked to hear that it was that many. I couldn't get how many square acres that was on, but they have 3 group sites, which each take up to 25 people, and 8 RV sites as well. And they're on a 7-kilometer shoreline, but I couldn't get the actual size of the entire park. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting as a comparison, and I thought that might be a helpful thing for us to look into more, as far as what, all the questions that we have about the impact of visitors, and all the other questions that we have are things that they've already dealt with. So I wonder if that's something that we could just use that as a model to kind of look into, get more details from that community about how they've been impacted by their campsites. And anyway, just an idea. But I also agree that it seems rushed as far as trying to do what's going on. And I appreciate that it's a first step and all of that, but I know it's such an important one that I just agree with everything that everybody else has already said, but that was just one area that I thought might be interesting to look into as well.
Nicola, do you know who manages that campsite on Salt Spring?
Well, good question. I think it's a BC provincial park, because you book it through the BC camping website.
But they have a private operator.
Do they? Well, it's also that part of that park is still a functioning farm.
Right. And how big is that park?
That's what I couldn't see. They didn't have it listed on the site exactly how big it was. But the campsites are most of them, other than the RV sites and the group sites, I think are separate, but most of those 78 are along the waterfront area, pretty close to, I don't know how many of you have been there. It's a beautiful site. Yeah.
So far I've heard Ruckle Park and Joffrey Lakes, and I can think of Porto Cove that's just down here in Howe Sound. Maybe this group could think up some more examples and we could have some comparisons made. I don't know, but it does seem like a good idea to look at other ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Rob.
Just one other thing that I don't know that I've seen anywhere in print is whether they're going to operate this seasonally and what sort of, is the park going to be closed to camping for the winter?
Sorry, that was another point I was going to say. They're only open March to October at Ruckles, which I think is true of a lot of the campsites.
Same with Derby Reach, which is what Metro Van operates out in Langley. I think it's March 1st to October 31st for them. I heard a rumor that this one might be May 1st on Bowen till October, but I haven't seen that anywhere in print. And what would that do for locals who want to use the park? If technically is it still available for day use? I'm assuming it would be.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I also had another, in terms of comparison, heard about Belcarra Park and concerns about residents not being able to, for example, get out of their driveways because of, parking issue. And that is a metro park. So I would also, I would like also to see, I saw that very nice letter from the chair of Metro Parks or Metro saying, that they have a lot of experience and they're well regarded and regarding camping. And I have heard not necessarily the same thing in terms of the management. So I think we would also want to take a look at something like that. Belcarra is similar in that there's sort of one road in, not a ferry, which makes our challenge even more, but sort of one road in and one road out kind of thing. So thank you, Belcarra.
Nicola's next, please.
I just can comment on that because I spend a lot of time out in the Port Moody area with my partner, and they just started huge signs at the Ioko Road turnoff saying that parking at White Pines Beach and at all the Belcarra sites, that it's full. So it's like, don't even go down there because there's no parking left. And all of the local beaches, they just put that up like at that one road down where you have to turn to go down Ioko, that big warning signs and bright lights that it's full and don't come. And you also, for a lot of those parks now, you have to book ahead parking online for some of those. So they've just figured that out in the last couple of years, and they've changed like no parking on any of the streets, and just they've done a lot of work out there just in the last couple of years. I think during COVID it just got crazy, and so they have addressed that.
Can I just check? I don't think we heard from Lou, and I think she might have just blinked out. Is she there?
Okay, well, we'll wait for her to come back. I was just going to point out that one of the challenges for this committee is that, there can be, we can get feedback from these other communities that have had this happen in their community. But, one of the most important things for this advisory committee is what is the impact on the environment? And that's going to be really hard to get from those other communities unless there's, a baseline study of before it was a campground and now that there's been a campground running for X number of years. So that's going to be really challenging. And I'd like us to kind of brainstorm of how we could look at that. And I see Jeremy and then Nicola.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it strikes me that there are so many unknowns in this case that whatever is proposed really ought to be approached very tentatively and experimentally in the realization that you can't come with a hard and fast written in stone kind of answer. It has to be explored so that you can backtrack if it doesn't work in context. And that may be particularly true given the constraints of an island in general. I suspect Metro Parks is maybe incorporate that to some degree, but again, this gets back to the idea of what are their thresholds and determining what those are very early on. What points are they not willing to backtrack on? But I do think the thing has to have a very experimental aspect to it because we simply don't know. Who does know? Who can say? And you don't want to screw it up. I mean, it's a delicate thing. I don't think you can just steamroller with an idea. You have to be prepared to be tentative and exploratory in your approach.
Thank you, Jeremy. I just want to say it's like
Nicola's next. Thank you.
Okay, Lou, I'm glad to see your hand up, Lou. I was just worried about the timing. That's all.
Nicola, go ahead.
So just a quick question. Sue Ellen, do you know if Salt Spring or any of the other islands have a committee like ours that we could talk to about this issue?
I do know they don't, because none of them are a municipality. And what they do have is regional parks, provincial park. I think it would probably be best to provincial parks would probably be the best contacts, and they might have information. Like I know on Hornby, the provincial parks actually purchased the private campsite next door along the beach to their provincial park in Hornby, partly because it was a noisy party site and they needed to sort of rehabilitate the camping and park in contact with nature experience for everybody. So they just outright bought the next people out, and they're doing a whole kind of restoration plan. So it might be worth looking around online, or perhaps we could, recommend that part of the study we need is trends in camping in British Columbia, because I know, and impact to parks from this new visitation, and from, some places are getting, like Tofino, people don't even bother getting all the way to Tofino. They just pull up their RV or their van beside the road, camp there, use the ditch for a toilet, and carry on. So it's these pressures. I don't know exactly where to get that information, but one place is Destination BC, and they're doing a study on the sea to sky corridor in terms of that kind of pressure of, I think they call them free campers, and the damage that they're doing. I'll stop.
Well, thanks.
Okay, I think I'm next. Just a couple of points. One is when one is getting on the ferry from Buckley Bay to go to Denman and then on to Hornby, they will ask you, do you have a camping reservation? And if you don't, they essentially turn you away, or, they at least alert you. And it's that, it's that bad. Like it
Yeah.
gets so busy that they don't want people coming over thinking they're going to camp when they don't have an actual reservation yet. And that includes the private campsites as well. But and then the other point I wanted to make is that if this all goes forward, then I was saying that there aren't any studies that we could probably look at of what was the baseline before it became a campground park versus, and what were the impacts of having that addition of so many people on the ground. And if this goes forward, it would be good to have our own baseline, and maybe, as Jeremy said, that it should be exploratory and start with a small number and see what the effect of that small number is on the vegetation and what have you.
Some kind of monitoring.
Okay, I will lower my hand. Anyone else before we move on?
Lou.
Yeah, most of the comments that have been made, I completely agree with. So I didn't want to be repetitive. And I did cut out for a bit. And I think maybe just hearing what Sue Ellen or Claudia just said, I think Jeremy brought it up. It would be, if there's a specific ask, I think knowing how they've set up campgrounds in other parts of the province or in Metro Van, and to understand, like, if they started out with a large number or if they were sort of incremental in the way they determined how many campsites were there. I think having this information, and if they haven't done it, they probably should conduct some kind of report or study on how camping has gone in their other campgrounds in the area, because I feel like there's just too many questions to make a decision on this overnight usage without knowing how the precedent has been in their other parks that they manage around. So I think we all have lots of questions. I'm definitely in support of a park, but the overnight use is just the traffic study, speaking to BC Ferries, impact on the neighboring communities, impact on habitat, the fire. There's so many studies I think that need to be done before we can make a decision on this. So I feel like the rest of the committee members do. And if we can ask for a study to be done before this overnight use is voted on, then that would be welcome, just to understand how they've been managing their campgrounds elsewhere. So that's my bit.
Thank you, Lou. And as Carla did point out for us, that we can request those studies, and it would be up to council. Well, we could advise that those studies be requested, and then it'll be up to council whether they request them before proceeding. So, all right. And Steph, you have a point?
Just to say, council really wants to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was up to council, but Councillor Fast can support that.
Mm-hmm.
They've really emphasized this.
And that will come more at the next meeting when it's an official referral. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, thanks everybody. This was a preliminary discussion to start absorbing all the info and get some conversation started among the committee, and looking forward to the everything that your committee can contribute to help council make those decisions. Thank you.
DG?
Yeah, just one last thing. I know that Metro Van is hosting a variety of focus groups, or at least one focus group that I, as a member of the Bowen Nature Club, was invited to, or the Nature Club was invited. And they switched their meeting from, it was supposed to be tonight or this afternoon from 5 to 7. And on, I believe it was about midnight on last Thursday night. So when I got to my email on Friday morning, I got an email saying, oh, it's not going to be on Tuesday, and we're going to switch it to the middle of the day on Wednesday, or for 10 a.m. to 12 on Wednesday. And I was actually flabbergasted that this is supposed to be a good engagement process with key stakeholders. And they chose with basically, and we had to let them know by Monday at 4 p.m. whether we could accommodate that that change in their schedule. And I think I also want to flag their, in my view, very poor practice, if that's one example of what they consider good engagement, to switch from basically less than 48 hours before to a change of time from after work scenario to during the workday. And, you know, you're expected to change. And so, I mean, ultimately, I said, I work, I can't switch on that short notice. And it's given me a lot of pause in terms of how sincere they are in terms of engagement. So I did CC my response to them, to mayor and council, because I think I also would like to bring that to council's attention, that if this is the quality of engagement, I'm not impressed.
Thank you, DG. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should move on now. And we are at, let's see, where are we? Okay, so we've done that. So business arising from the minutes of the last meeting. And we have the 2023 PTGAC work plan finally back on the table. And Carla, you're going to speak to that for us. Thank you. And perhaps everyone could flip to pages 11 to 14 of their agenda, so we're all looking at the same information.
Are you going to share, Carla? Screen?
Yeah, sorry, I was just switching my screen around. You good? Everybody can see that? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so 2023 work plan. There wasn't a ton on here, but there also wasn't a ton that we completed. So a lot of it, I just changed the dates to 2023. And then I wanted to maybe add a few things. For the first one, we have the Parks Plan recommendation to create effective public communication and education. And we had just create communication pieces on there. And I thought I wasn't totally sure what we were planning on doing with that, because we did those articles a while ago and those were really great. And I think maybe the idea was to continue that or something of that nature, but I thought maybe we could get a bit more specific on that. As part of my update, I was going to tell you guys that I did a field trip with some BIC students the other day, grades 2-3, and we went to the water treatment plant, and that was really fun. And it just made me think of DG talking about how you guys used to do that whole watershed school trip thing. And I just thought that would be so cool to get that going again, or, maybe to do something like that. Or just do like little social media posts or whatever. I don't know. I'm just kind of putting feelers out there to see what the committee might be interested in doing. If there's any ideas on how to engage the community. Nicola?
I am so tiny now, I can't find my little button. I just putting it out there that I love the idea of working with the school kids, and I'm studying, I don't know if it sounds flaky, but I'm studying forest bathing right now. I'd be happy to volunteer to contact BIC or whichever of the schools and maybe take some of the forest bathing experience. So I'd be happy to volunteer to do that.
Perhaps we should learn more about it from you so we can know if it's something that the PTGAC is behind, or if it's something more independent, just so that it's in alignment with what we do. So would it be possible to next meeting, give us like a 5 or 10 minute
Sure.
briefing? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I can't see everyone when the screen is being shared, so please speak up if you would like to say something, or I can see some of you. So does anyone have any other comments on that for Carla?
I think
Carla, oh, sorry.
Oh. I'll just be really quick. I really thought that the articles that we did and that maybe could be posted both, I think they were like on the website as well as in the undercurrent. I think I thought they were really good and well received by the community. So I would like to see for sure those moving ahead. And I love the school group idea. I know I don't have any time this year, but maybe 2024, I'll have some time. I'm looking to cut my full-time workload back significantly as of September. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Lou?
Yeah, I was looking to see if I could find the programming, but the Bowen Island Community Recreation Group, they have some, I can't remember what the name of the classes, but maybe it's Nature Detectives or something that they do. That's a camp, but there's like an ongoing nature thing that they did last year that I know my son wanted to do, but we just couldn't do it with the timing. Maybe it might be worthwhile sort of partnering with them and kind of doing a few days and trying it out and seeing if, it'd be worth building out a whole sort of program like through community recreation, or I don't know if you want to go with the school directly or consider the recreation group. So it's just an option. We'll have to look at the calendar and see what they're offering, but that could be a good partner.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. And to DG's point about the articles, I know they did go out to the undercurrent and on the municipal website, but perhaps they can go out on social media. I mean, there'd be lots of people that didn't pick up the undercurrent that week and didn't see the article. So I don't think there's any fear of, and it can say, originally posted at this date, but yeah, so I think that's a good use too of our resources, because the people who submitted those articles put a lot of time into it. And so I think that's something, and I see Sue Ellen nodding and DG put thumbs up. So.
Okay, cool.
Anyone else with ideas about that engagement? Okay. Carla, I'll let you take it back.
Okay, so the Maggie Cumming grant, we are wrapping up the Quarry and Headwaters Park project finally this spring. That's also on the work plan a little further down, just to help organize a community event around that, just to have a small kind of, unveiling of the park improvements, I guess. So that's one other thing there. And then, but I thought it would be a good idea this year, at least a plan for projects. It's really helpful if we have a project in mind that we can budget for it, get it on the books and then apply for the grant. So I'm hoping to do that. And if maybe there's something small for this year, we could potentially do something this year as well. But I really, that can be a little bit later on once we actually finish the Quarry and Headwaters Park.
Carla, can I ask a couple questions? One is, can you increase the size of the spreadsheet that we're looking at on screen? It's quite small to read. That bottom right slide bar at the very bottom right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank
Oh.
you. Whoa.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. It's
While
touchy.
you're doing that,
Okay.
I'm not sure we know as a committee exactly what amount we have to work with each year or overall with the Maggie Cumming grant, and that might influence, what kind of scope of projects we could propose.
Mhm. I'm also not completely sure, but I think it's fairly significant. Sue Ellen might be able to speak more to that, but we also have to match it too. So it has to be a project that would be supported by the community foundation as well as council and the municipality, because it's a 50-50 grant. So we have to kind of look at things that are, in the parks plan, or, necessary. So.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. And Sue Ellen, do you have any more information on that, or?
I
Really?
do. I've got a file. I just don't have it out here in the living room. But it's a, I think, well, anyway, there's a complicated agreement because the foundation or Maggie had left 3 of us Bowen Islanders as people to be consulted, but I think that it's worked out really well. One of them is me, one of them is Alan Whitehead, and one of them is Bob Turner. And so I think it's working out well, though if Carla can, facilitate us pulling some ideas together, perhaps from the parks plan. And then when at some point, either the foundation or Carla or our group can run it past. I think what we did last time was I just ran it past Alan and Bob and made sure nobody had any objections or whether they had ideas and that kind of thing. So I can be a sort of side outreach person, and but I have a whole file on it. And one thing that obviously comes to mind is if and when Maggie Cummings' property is rezoned, that's that Arbutus Bay one, then maybe some project to do with setting up the new park and the access and to the water and that kind of thing. Maybe that's too close. I don't know. And I think we can be creative here too. So
I was just going to add that the last grant was 10,000. So
Okay, thank you.
perhaps potentially in that
And
neighborhood.
DG's got her hand up. Thank you, DG.
Thanks. I was out at Tunstall Bay and the access there into the beach, and noticed that the erosion there has gotten quite bad. And I know a few years ago we had talked about doing something for the access, and something was done, but I think it's all been washed out. So I'm just wondering whether that should be identified as something that needs to be dealt with at some point in the next little bit.
yeah, we talked about doing a naturescape, soft greenscape. What's it called, DG? For the
Green Shores.
Green Shore, project there to help secure the beach, I guess one way to put it. And we could probably call on Phil to get his advice as well. But I'm thinking, I just read something from Puget Sound where there's a beach called Wash Away Beach. And there they did something different, which involved putting down a sort of rock berm below the low tide line. So the waves hit that first and got some of their energy out, dropped their sand. So they were actually, anyway, it was interesting. There's different things that I think that's a good idea, is to actually address an ongoing issue that we've been looking at through this committee for a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the access. There's lots of different options of what you can do. But I guess my concern is that if we don't address people going down that public access, it's just, the problem's just going to get worse. So I think, chances are it's going to take more than $10,000 to fix, to do it right. But there are now some good grants that you can get. The municipality can get up to $2 million for a shoreline restoration. Usually it's disaster risk management. So there's money out there to do it. And anyway, so if we can put that on the work plan, maybe it shouldn't be on the Maggie Cumming grant, but just on the work plan in terms of figuring out what are we going to do there, because that's a prime beach, and it's not doing well. When I was last there, which was, I think it was around Christmas time or just early in the new year.
Okay, thank you. Carla?
Yeah, I agree with you, and we're a little unsure about what to do there for sure. So I would be happy to talk about it at the next meeting if you wouldn't mind putting that on the agenda for the next meeting, Steph. And maybe Sue Ellen could talk to her grant administrators and see if that would be a potential project that could be supported by the Maggie Cumming grant. Because yeah, okay, we'll move on. Walkabouts is pretty standard. It's always going to be on here, I think. So we have a recommendation about working with stewardship groups on trail maintenance and invasive species removal. So I guess this is kind of a standard stays on there one, but also I was thinking about that I just did some yellow flag iris treatments at Grafton Lake in the fall. And so there's going to be more of that to come. We didn't get it all done. I tried to get everything that was in the stream because we actually had to get like a permit for that, for working in the stream. So we tried to get all of the stream stuff done, but there's still stuff on the bank that needs to be treated. And so I thought if the committee wanted to help to do a volunteer event, that would be really good, especially because it's one of those things that we need kind of skilled. It can't be like everybody just come and, pull some invasive species. Like we need people who kind of know what they're doing. So if there's anyone who walks around the lake all the time, around Grafton Lake, if they wanted to check them or keep an eye out for more, that's the kind of thing I was thinking about with that recommendation. So
that sounds like perhaps a good topic for an undercurrent article, and
totally
educating people about the threat that that species has, and maybe asking them some citizen science input of where they're seeing it.
Yeah.
We might know from that who we can call upon to help with a volunteer party, to who we get responses from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. That was kind of on my work plan as well, to write some sort of a communication for the yellow flag iris, maybe send it to everyone upstream from Grafton Lake, at least, like do a mail out. Yeah.
Okay. But
island wide is better. Okay, we are at okay, so the Art Renison Nature Park, this is, we did one subcommittee meeting, and then I think we kind of stopped on that because the subdivision hadn't gone through. I believe in the last week or so that it's potentially been registered. So we maybe now own it. So this work on this will start again.
Okay.
Which is great. Mm-hmm. We have educational information about beaches, Dutch assistance. Okay, I think this is pretty much the Tunstall Beach recommendation right there, right? That that we would discuss what to do there and provide recommendations. And maybe there are other ones that we could talk about as well. And then identify undeveloped beach accesses in need of improvements. I'm always interested in doing that. Well, we did a walkabout at Point and around Eagle Cliff a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure that we ever discussed it because it was like right before COVID or during COVID, and that would be great to do that again. And
I think I've still got all my photos and things that I took at the Hood Point one. But it would be good to look at all of them and see where do we need, where's the demand as well.
yeah, for sure. So I don't know, maybe that's something that we could discuss at a meeting and then maybe have a walkabout after that and, you know, a discussion again after, or I don't know.
Just expressing interest in getting and doing that. That's good.
And then the community event around quarry and headwaters, we already talked about. And reviewing rezonings and subdivisions is another standard one. Did someone have something to add, or is that just background noise?
It's background noise. Sorry, I'm gonna have to mute.
No worries. Nicola?
Sorry, can I just go back to the beach access?
Mhm.
Does your staff go specifically after the winter when there's been a lot of the high tides, king tides, and try to make some of the beaches more accessible? I remember years ago that they did do that when they put the handicap parking sign at Bowen Bay Beach, and then they made that accessible for like they purposely cleared away some of the driftwood that had come up to make that beach accessible when they put that sign in. But that was years ago, and I don't know if it's still being done or if it's done anywhere. And I just think it would be nice to have a couple of accessible beaches for seniors, disabled. I don't know, Sue Ellen, I know you have your dad is with you, and there are very few beaches I think that are really easily accessible. I used to go with a elder friend, and gradually it just got harder and harder to get to the beaches. So I'm wondering if that's something that we could make happen, at least one of the beaches that was easily accessible for seniors and disabled people.
So within the parks plan, we have different classifications for the beaches, and we have 4 community beaches. So those are Tunstall, Bowen Bay, Sandy Beach, and Roger Curtis Beach, or AKA Pebble Beach. Actually, and so if at those ones, we try to maintain an access to the water as best as we can. And that's the level of service that we're able to provide at this point. A lot of the other beaches get pretty, there's a lot of logs. We don't have a very efficient way to deal with them. And yeah, so that's what there is right now currently.
Okay, so it does happen at a couple of the beaches. I just
yeah
paying that much attention since I lost my senior friend in the last couple of years, I guess. But okay, thanks. I just wanted to check.
Okay. So we were at the signage, where signage is not up to date with current branding. If you could let us know, and we'll change any of those signs. I think that's mostly done. It's funny that we still spot them because it's been several years. So I will leave it on here for 1 more year, because every now and again I see them too, and we'll make sure that they're all changed. But yeah, let's keep it in mind for this last year. And then I also added the work with bits on the Mount Gardner on Mount Gardner kiosk improvements. So we worked with NERP and we replaced the one at Hikers Trail Road, and Bits is interested in working on the Laura Road kiosk and the one at the end Meany Lane. So I thought that would be a good collaborative project to work on with them. Claudia?
Carla?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in case I forget, that the representative from BITS is going to present to us bi-monthly. We had talked about it happening monthly, but she's been in touch and she thinks a bi-monthly report to our committee would be best. So just popping that in. Thank you.
Thanks. And Rob, did you have something to add, or?
Just something where there's trailheads to Crown Land trails. I'm wondering about talking to BITS about BC Adventure Smart signage for being prepared for the outdoors. So talking about things like the 10 essentials, having a flashlight, having extra clothing, those kinds of things for people that are embarking on hikes on Crown lands.
Not wearing sandals?
Well, there is a certain expectation, but search and rescue teams, which I used to be part of, are always amazed at the call outs that they receive.
Good point. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just put it on the work plan. I mean, we could make a note of it somewhere else. Yeah, but that could be our part of the kiosks as well. I think that, and we're not really sure who's going to do like the work and provide the funding because they're on our land, but they are for Crown land. So I guess we, like Bowen Island Municipality, would own them. So I think we could certainly add some of that signage with them and work with BITS.
Particularly for Mount Gardner. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
obviously have to be done in Quarry Park and so on, but
No, I don't
Mount
think
Gardner is
anybody
a big one.
needs. Okay. Yeah. BC Adventure Smart signage or recommendations?
Yeah, some information that's pertinent for being prepared for hiking.
Okay.
Which is through you can find all that through BC Adventure Smart.
And improved wayfinding signage where needed. I think, if anyone has suggestions for that, we could, yeah. And engaging the community members in the subjective. Okay. Anyone have anything to add to this?
Question, Carla?
Yeah.
Who is responsible for the multi-use path? Are we partly responsible for that?
Do you mean like
terms
the
of
municipality is responsible, but do you mean the committee or?
The committee in terms of recommendations? The reason for my question is I'm curious to know about signage. Because right now, coming off the ferry, it's not clear to me whether there's any signage to indicate that is a multi-use path. It looks like just a giant sidewalk.
Right.
So I was curious as to, I don't know if this is the appropriate venue to bring it up in, but is there something planned so people know what it is?
So it would be the transportation committee that's mostly responsible for it, but that's not to say that you couldn't make a recommendation. Or I don't know, Steph, could we make a recommendation to the transportation committee, or?
It was generally Emma with the transportation committee. She was the transportation planner. And she differentiates between path and trail. So path being more getting from A to B, trail being more experiencing your leisure. But Patrick has sought your advice on the route, as you recall, recently. And there were part of the wayfinding program that Emma was implementing was in association with the Spirit Trail on the North Shore.
Right.
And I think we are part of the Spirit Trail now, thanks to her initiatives. So any sort of signage would be nice to be incorporated with that artwork. So I can make a note, or we can make maybe next meeting, we can maybe make a little recommendation if people want to think about it.
So, I mean, I will add as well that there was a whole signage plan with the multi-use pathway. I I don't remember, but it got done as part of maybe the rebranding, something with the rebranding, and there was a wayfinding plan, and a lot of the signs got printed. And I know the Public Works put up some of them up, but not all of them up, because because the path isn't complete. So it's hard to put up signs that say this way to Tunstall and that kind of thing. And well, I mean, I guess you can still say that, but if this trail doesn't go there, it's kind of, or the path doesn't go there, then anyways. But if we want to talk about that and make a recommendation, I think that we could do that.
Yeah, if they're not already taken care of it. My concern was, as once we get around to May, if there's not signage, are we expecting cyclists to use that trail or that path, or to use the road? Impact on ferry loading and unloading, things like that. So
for sure. If
yeah,
you want, I could just mention it to Public Works too.
There could be something like in this about multi-use path engagement. What do you have installed in the park entry trailhead? Yeah.
Yeah, not to detract from
It's
something outside of our scope, but
I don't think it's really outside of our scope, in the sense that one of the things we've talked about is connectivity of greenways and connectivity of trails, and that we would be encouraging people to, use things like the MUP to get from, to access a trailhead, for example. So I think it's within our scope.
Okay, I'll just add it here then.
thank you.
Okay. Okay.
This is good.
And then determine feasibility of a pollinator area and boxes for bats and swallows on poles and trees. I feel like this may just complete that other thing that we said at the top. Maybe it's a Maggie Cumming. Oh no, maybe that's not really in the appropriate for a Maggie Cumming grant, but it seems like a smaller project that potentially could be done this year. So this would be a good one to talk about.
I think for bats and swallows, it would definitely be under Maggie Cummings. Sue Ellen can speak to that, but I recently had contact with a bat conservation group, and was planning to include their poster signage in the upcoming phone book about reporting on bats on the island. If anyone sees, they're particularly concerned about the white nose syndrome that is killing a lot of bats and hasn't quite reached us, but it's moving this way. So yeah, that might tie in well. Sue Ellen? Oh, you're on mute, Sue Ellen.
I think this project, you'll see the words Nature Club and Conservancy beside it. Part of this is because when you put up the bat boxes and bird boxes, somebody needs to maintain them, and they can't just be left to become diseased, or they need stewardship, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And we thought, I think originally we were thinking about the park with the name that I can't think of, that is where the disc golf course is now.
Veterans Park.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
It got that name, but anyway, I think it's something we could do in partnership with some groups that would be, or we could do it as a big work party. But sooner or later, somebody has to go around and take them down and clean them and fix them over time. Otherwise, they just sit up there and rot. So there's more to this than just putting them up, and maybe maybe it's something that one of the, I don't know, that the nature club or something might be interested in. I don't really think that putting up bird boxes and bat boxes in parks is a good idea. So unless it's kind of a bear park that has poles in it, which is why veteran park. Otherwise, all you're doing is trying to replace natural habitat. Maybe it's good for a fairly new park with new trees, like Quarry Park, perhaps, or Headwaters, where you might, give it another 10 years before the trees are big enough to have holes in them for hole nesting birds, because that's basically what nesting boxes are there to take the place of. So just a few ideas there.
Okay.
Carla?
What's that, Claudia?
Oh, I said back to you, Carla.
Okay, thanks. So it sounds like we have it right on here that we need to just determine the feasibility of doing a project like that, right? Okay, and then the other one was special places. So if we wanted to actually meet in person again and do a tabletop exercise, or consider including old trees. And that's interesting. The old trees and mapping. I remember someone asking me about LiDAR data a long time ago to try to identify old trees through that data, but I didn't have the right data to provide them with. So I wonder if we have it now. And someone might want to do that project. Anyways, did anyone have anything to add to these or take away?
I was just going to say, we were at one point going to do a walkabout. I think that I was supposed to lead out at Good Point West, and I'm not sure what happened to that.
I do remember that it ended up being on a day where something crazy happened. Oh, I was trying to apply for a grant for the compost facility, and it was like the deadline was like in 3 days, and we couldn't do it, and we called and canceled it last minute, and then I just don't think it got rescheduled.
Anyway,
So-
it's a very interesting bit of crown land that it has got big trees, and it's very open and very interesting, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. It would be
And Jeremy, you led us out there a number of years ago, and I was.
That's right. Yeah, I did. But a lot of people couldn't make it.
Mhm.
Anyway, worth revisiting.
Okay.
I'll put this back up in the walkabouts, maybe. Okay, I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Carla. That's great.
Are we going to do a recommendation to council?
To accept our work plan, essentially.
Improve it.
Do you need any wording, or you're good?
That the park doesn't.
I'm sorry, Sue Ellen?
5B there's some suggested wording.
I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay.
Yes, please. I can't read that small.
That the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee recommend that council approve the 2023 PTGAC work plan as amended at its February 28, 2023 meeting.
Perfect. All right. Can I have a mover? Nicola, thank you. And a seconder? Jeremy, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
That was good.
Wow, just worked, didn't it?
Ooh.
Okay, so we are now at updates. And we're going to start with, Ben isn't here. Is someone taking over for him for 6.1, the Arbutus Bay Road rezoning site visit? We don't know.
Was Ben there?
He wasn't there.
I don't remember him being there.
No, he just asked for it to be on the agenda, so I'll put his name on it. Who was there? Which
I
member?
was there. I could, Jeremy was there. Sue Ellen, I didn't prepare anything, so please, Jeremy and Sue Ellen, jump in. We had a very nice tour given of the property by the owners, and we definitely had some suggestions on how their proposal for the subdivision could be improved, because they are allowing for quite a bit of park, but it's not reaching the 50% conservation development principles. And we don't want to already start sliding back from that, because that is now, part of the Muni's subdivision work plan. Also,
Sorry, excuse me, didn't we deal with this at our last meeting?
since
We made a
went out to the
recommendation.
site, I don't know.
I can do an update because council dealt with this last night, and we
Okay.
gave the first
Yeah.
reading to the Arbutus Bay rezoning, and they had bumped up the amounts of park, so it's over 50%, and it does include some kind of coastal protection and more access down to the water, and then on the left there would be an area. So check out last night's agenda if you'd like details. But we, as municipal council, gave it first reading. Daniel presented, so there's slides you can look at about the changes.
Yeah, we made recommendations, but at our last meeting to council, and it sounds like council listened to those recommendations. So thank you.
Sorry about that, Eugene.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, and we do not have the Bowen Island Trail Society update 6.2, but we're going to switch to bi-monthly, so we'll likely hear next month. So 6.3, Committee, Council, and Islands Trust updates. Councillor Fast, please.
Sure. Well, I've already done some of them through the course of the meeting, but I'll let people know last night the CAO at our council meeting told us that we have received another grant for the next chunk of the multi-use pathway. So it'll go from Artisan Lane to Charlie's Lane, sort of the next little phase and next little stretch. So it's moving ahead. Last night there was an accessibility committee set up by council. So we approved the terms of reference and everything. Staff had pulled it together very quickly. Thank you, Steph. And so I'll be on that one as well as Alex Jurgensen. And we've got to draw people from the community and that kind of thing. So just letting you know that'll be getting started this year. I think it's supposed to get started. The province has said thou shalt, and so we're doing it. I want to let you know I'm also on the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee as liaison. So you will have seen I've started to, when I send out all kinds of info that you may or may not read, but just in case you're interested, I sent it to them too. And so we've got different roles according to the terms of reference. And but there's some strong environmental people on that one too. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody. And Trust Council, Islands Trust Council meets for one of its 4 meetings a year next week in Nanaimo. So Judy Getty and I will be going as the Islands Trust trustees, and it's budget time. So we'll find out about the priorities of Islands Trust Council at that point. It also includes approving the budget for the Islands Trust Conservancy, which I think of as the biodiversity arm of the Islands Trust, and Trust Area Services, which I think of as the Federation of Islands arm, the Federation arm. Those are the 2 parts that Bowen participates in. And so I'll come back with more news. And my last request here is just as a long-term Bowen Heron Watch volunteer, which is a project of the Bowen Island Conservancy and the Nature Club. If you see herons standing in trees or near nests, please let me know. And photos are welcome. And I'll be communicating with Carla as well. And but I'm the one who kind of records the data and keeps track of it. And so we're getting close to nesting season, and we could start seeing herons nesting any part of the island, really. So if you see them in trees, or if you see more than one flying, if you see two or more flying together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. And 6.4 is the staff update, and Carla is going to speak to that.
Okay, I don't have too much that I want to talk about, but I was going to tell you that we did, well, I was going to tell you about the field trip that we did with Bix, which was really fun, and they came and visited the water treatment plant that's not currently functioning, but it was still really cool to look at, and they were all really impressed. And some of the utilities crew came along as well, and Dewey was a wonderful host. We also did a planting at the fire hall with IPS last week, which was really fun. There's still more planting to be done. And just a small update on compost as well. So the I think just after our last meeting, I went back to council to ask for $5,000 to complete the site design for the Green Mountain Technologies site built system. I think I can't remember what I would have told you last time, but we realized late in the game last year that the hot rod wasn't going to work. Our volumes of green waste had gone up so significantly that it would have required us to purchase a second hot rod machine, which logistically would have been pretty good, because then we can get them both shipped from New Zealand at the same time. But it was going to be so significantly more expensive, and the grant amount wouldn't increase. It was still only so we would have been on the hook for too much money. So we went back to the older studies, the one that the working group, the on-island compost working group did, and they had recommended the Green Mountain Technologies. So we looked into that again, and we're thinking that it's going to work really well. And the province has agreed to let us use the grant for that technology instead. Council agreed to let us spend the $5,000 on the site design, and we're going to look at all the feedstocks and stuff and see if it's going to work, and if we'll go back to council with that information once we've compiled it. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Carla. And that's it for everyone then, I think, unless there's new business. Does anyone have any new business? We have 10 minutes allotted.
Did
No.
you want to look at those pictures for the volleyball? Just
Sure.
to,
Would you have them? Want me to get them?
do you have them?
Yeah, I've got them. Yep.
Just because
Sure.
I realized we said we would look at them if we had time, but I can speak to that really quickly. It was just Swellen, Terry, and Rob and I that went on a walkabout to look at possible sites for the volleyball, and I think you know, I don't want to speak for everyone, but when we were looking at the Sandy Beach site again, you know, there was a neat spot that Sue Ellen showed us where there was, you know, could be a possible lower trail that goes that comes off the road, which was a neat approach to Sandy Beach. And we talked about maybe making it like a smaller project with not having a full-size volleyball court, because I think once we were looking at this site, and because those king tides had just happened, we realized that, you know, back in line, I would say, with almost the second furthest alder back, that some of the older driftwood back there had been affected by that king tide. And so, like, to me, I would be really worried about putting something there that would potentially get washed away, you know, possibly every winter. So that's that pictures. Do you want to go to the next one, Steph? I think there might be a couple pictures of that. So, Ellen, if you wanted to, you can go ahead if you want to. I saw your hand up, so you're on mute.
Sure. Yeah, these are photos I took, and it was right after the king tide and way back by the second figure there. The waves had come right up into the tree. You could tell because they carried some material up. And since then, I've been looking at the Mannion Bay restoration project too, to restore socio-ecological integrity and that kind of thing. So I don't know about, and it's very shady back there. I've been watching as I come by across the causeway. But if you look back between those two people, there is a road right of way that Carla has just talked about, and it kind of goes back towards where the traffic circle is now. So behind the houses, and all those houses, all three houses are empty. And I just flagged it with Carla because not everybody has looked at that on the map. But back 25 years ago, when we first developed Sandy Beach as one of the first things we did out of the 1994 Parks Plan, with Maggie Cumming, by the way, we looked at which access would be better to do. And so I just wanted to flag the alternative with Carla. That's what she's talking about. Over to you.
Oh, okay. And then maybe the next picture, Steph. So I'm not sure what Terry's pointing at here. Maybe the next one. So we kind of moved on from Sandy Beach. We thought, you know, maybe it's a possibility to do something a little bit smaller here, but it is quite concerning. We don't love putting any kind of infrastructure in a place where it can be washed away from the tide. So we continued walking, and then you can go to the next picture, Steph. We went over to the Bowfest field, and I think everyone agreed that if it was possible, this would be a really great spot. Maybe the next picture. So maybe even if it was not necessarily right in that picture, but over to the left-hand side of this photo, so you're back a bit from the beach, so you're not taking up the beach or disturbing the beach, but you're still, you know, playing beach volleyball. We know that it's quite difficult to get Metro Vancouver to agree to have any kind of recreation. It's not in their mandate. You know, I think we heard it a lot yesterday. Protect and connect, protect nature and connect people with nature is what they're all about right now. However, we are a little bit different because we already have a bunch of recreation type things in their parks. So maybe they'd be amenable to having one more. And then this is the field behind the ball field, and we thought this was actually kind of a neat spot to have it as well. It's no longer on the beach, and Steph informed me after our walkabout that this was off the table because this is where they practice for baseball, which I don't think any of us realized when we were on the walkabout, but we had identified it as a possibility when we were walking. So I think you can stop sharing, Steph. At this point, you know, I really want I really want to encourage Terry, and I want the project to happen, but it's been difficult to identify a place that is appropriate for the project. I think Terry might be amenable to making doing something a little bit different, but I'll let her present that or talk about that at a meeting when she is able to. But if anyone has any other comments, happy to hear them.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody was down in the picnic grounds when the king tide was up, but it consumed more than the beach. It was up right practically to the old maple tree there. It was pretty amazing. So if anything was down in that area, that would potentially run the possibility of being swept away again. And I suppose these things are just going to get more pronounced with climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just something that it shocked me how high that tide was.
That is shocking.
Yeah.
So I do agree with Steph. That's where softball, slow pitch, baseball practice happens. But I there could be enough room there to have both activities, especially if, you know, if there's no one playing volleyball. And volleyball court doesn't take up too much room. So if it was tucked to the side, maybe at the Bowfest field end of the, is it called the Snake Field, or is that only in reference to the one at Bix? But sometimes it's called the Snake Field. So I don't know, maybe, you know, again, we're having to argue with Metro Parks for recreation facilities, but we are different in that we have lots of nature and lots of connection of people to nature and not a lot of recreational facilities. Sue Ellen?
Just a thought, since we're talking about this and we're talking about the potential big new park at Cape Roger Curtis, could we put a beach volleyball spot on one of those big gravel pads? It's out there in the sun and there's sea in view. Anyway, just an idea.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
one doesn't have sandy beaches, right? This is it,
Mhm.
it's hard to find a place to put a beach volleyball, let alone something that you can also have other uses. So,
Mhm.
Wouldn't want the ball to go over the edge there, though.
Yeah.
Being a-
Yeah, okay. So then we're on to, if everyone's made their points on that, I didn't cut anyone off. Okay, thank you. So information items are attached if anyone hasn't seen them and wants to see them. And the proposed next meeting date is Tuesday, April 4th. Does that seem to work for most people at this point? Yeah, okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Great.
And you have 2 referrals at that meeting, plus I think 2 or 3 items that have just come up over the course of this meeting. The RV display bylaw and the rezoning.
Right. Okay, thank you. So that will be a busy meeting. Well, in that case, thank you all for coming out tonight and spending your time here, and we will adjourn.
Night, everyone.
Night,
Good night,
take
everybody.
care. Thank you, especially Carla and Sue Ellen. You had to do a lot of talking tonight, so thank you very much.
I
long
think
day.
thanks for all the input.
Another thing.